to our first interview where we discuss critical issues. These segments are where leaders from various spheres share their thoughts on issues millennials are facing. Today we have our first interview with Lori Coleman, the digital director from DemCast's. Hi Lori, welcome to A Few Minutes For Millennials and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell our viewers a little bit about DemCast's?
I would love to. DemCast's is a nonprofit organization built by activists and organizers to be the megaphone for the grassroots. And it's for grassroots organizations like yours. We partner with people, Democratic parties, social justice organizations, individuals, just anybody who needs to have their views shared. And we train and recruit people to share those across social media. So as you know, that there's a lot of fake news out there. There's a lot of propaganda out there. We want DemCast's to be a trusted voice that when you see something being shared by DemCast's, you don't have to worry that it's fake news, altered news, it's not right. That it's a trusted brand, and that we're lifting up the voices of the people who are actually doing the hard work on the ground.
That's really important. Thank you. Before we get into our main questions, I want to share something with you. When we first launched and attempted to reach other organizations to assist us with the Democratic election, we couldn't get a meeting, a conversation, or an email reply. They were basically turning down help, and we were getting discouraged. DemCast's took our calls, met with us, and decided to give more value to our cause. I want you and your staff members to know that A Few Minutes For Millennials appreciates your graciousness, and we are forever indebted to DemCast's for giving us advice, a pat on the back, and even a cup of Gatorade to help us stay in this race. Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome.
Now, we're millennials, and our language is emoji. How are you doing over there in emoji?
I am loving it. Watch me wink.
Well, you're looking just great. So, let's get to it. Lori, from your perspective, give us your opinion on the 3 most critical issues millennials are facing.
Well, I thought a lot about this, and I know that there are millennials out there who feel very passionate about social justice reform, criminal justice reform, equal rights, just so many things that people are passionate about, climate justice. But the 3 I picked today were student loan debt, living wage, and healthcare.
All right. Now, for your first issue, you said student loan debt. Can you please explain why you chose that as the most critical issue millennials are facing?
Well, yes. So my daughter and my nephew both are, under more than $70,000 in student loan debt. And I hear that from a lot of other people. When I graduated a long time ago, I had maybe $1,000 or $5,000 in student loan debt. Right, everybody wishes that now, right? So it's just crushing to people who are trying to start a life. They're going to come in potentially at a starting entry point job, so they're not going to get paid very much. My daughter, her loan payments were going to be $700 a month. I mean, she wants to move out and have her own apartment. The apartment itself is $900. So that's already $1,600 a month, and that's not anything else. That's not food, car, cell phone, nothing. So it's crushing, and it's keeping a lot of millennials from being productive consumers because they're spending so much money paying back student loan debt.
And the next issue you said was living wage. What makes that a critical issue?
Well, 45% of Americans are getting paid less than $15 an hour right now. And a lot of those are millennials. So the millennials who can't or chose not to go to college, and some of the reasons they're doing that is to avoid crushing student loan debt. So if they're going out in entry-level jobs out of high school, there's no way that they can make enough money to have an apartment or a family or anything like that. So I think it's really important that we have an ability to at least live over the poverty level on minimum wage.
Yeah.
And that is something that is really critical to our society as a whole, is to have these people who can contribute to society in a positive way. And that's really difficult when you make $8 an hour.
Stay afloat at that point. And the last issue you mentioned is healthcare access. Why did you include that as a critical issue millennials face?
Well, again, when you're coming into an entry-level job and maybe it's not a full-time job, you may not have access to healthcare insurance. Right now, we are able to, if your parents are insured, you can be insured through age 26. But that is something that is available under the Affordable Care Act. And of course, we know Trump is supporting a lawsuit that would eliminate the Affordable Care Act, including protections for pre-existing conditions, but also that would eliminate your ability to stay on your parents' insurance. And they have no plan to replace it. So their intention then is they could, in one swoop, when this lawsuit goes to the Supreme Court, and he's put his judges on the Supreme Court, could eliminate your ability to have that insurance. Now, as a young, probably healthy person, maybe you don't see that as a critical thing for your day-to-day life, but so much of what we do preventative helps prevent problems down the road. If you are a young mother, you could be bankrupted by going to the hospital and giving birth. And then that childbirth is now a pre-existing condition. Anything that comes after that, then and you have to change insurance for some reason, if you have a complication, that would not be covered under your insurance. So it affects people across the board. And if you are going through the exchange now to get insurance, again, Trump and the Republicans have done everything they can to make that more expensive and also make it cover less than it was intended to. So it's I think a significant issue that maybe young, healthy millennials don't see quite as important. But you don't want to be bankrupt at the age of 27 because your appendix burst and you have $15,000 of medical bills for that.
Now, Lori, is there a candidate or candidates that you think will best address those issues? If you are not prepared to say, please just tell us what you think millennials should be looking for in a candidate who will address their issues.
Well, before I talk about candidates, I'd like to talk about a couple of other things.
Okay, go ahead.
Because the presidential candidate even if we elect a Democrat, will be significantly hampered if we don't also take the Senate as well. Mitch McConnell basically spent the last 6 years of Barack Obama's presidency. In fact, he proudly counts that as one of his greatest accomplishments, that he stopped every single piece of legislation that Obama supported in the last 6 years. That was his goal. And he says how proud he is. He's currently sitting on 400 bills that the House has passed. Things like the violence against women, things like health care rights, things like anti-corruption bills. They will not even hear a single hearing on any of those. So if we do not take back the Senate, which we need to flip 4 seats to do, 3 if we elect a Democratic president, because the vice president is the swing vote if there's a tie. So we need to take that back back that majority. And if you want to know how to help with that, you could go to the DemCastUSA.com site, and we have a Flip the Senate page. And in that Senate, there are listed who we need to protect and who we need to move from Republican to Democrat. And what's interesting is 3 years ago, I didn't really understand how a person could get involved to help other states achieve those things. And you really can. You can send money, if you have it, to the candidates who are being elected in those areas. Now back to the president. What I would advise you to do is to look for several things. One is vision. Do they seem to have a vision for what they want to accomplish, and does that align with you? So if you haven't had your primary yet, look at the people who are running in the primary and go vote for the person that you think is the best candidate that aligns with what you want to happen. But another thing to think about is, can they actually accomplish those things? And if they don't have the support in the House or the Senate to get those bills passed, it doesn't really matter what their vision is, because it's not going to happen. So you need somebody who's willing to compromise and take steps towards that vision. People, say, well, I don't want somebody who's an incrementalist. That means that I'm going to take step 1 and step 2 and step 3 towards that goal. But frequently, that's the way politics works, is you pass something that helps the situation. It may not fix it, but it helps it. And then the next bill you pass helps it more and more. But if you don't have the ability to make those compromises and get some of those things passed, then what you have is a vision and no results. So I just think it's really important for you to think about, who do you think can actually get it done, not just the vision. There's a saying that Republicans fall in line and Democrats fall in love, which means we tend to vote with our heart. Republicans vote if there's a Republican R by the candidate's name. So what I'm going to tell you to do is vote for who you love in the primary, but whatever you do, go vote for the Democrat in November, because every single one of them is better than Trump. Every single one of them, 85% of their platform is the same. They're only slightly different in how they're going to accomplish those things. So if your candidate that you're in love with, that you voted for in the primary, doesn't get the nomination, maybe it's the one that you really dislike. You need to go vote in November.
It still matters.
It's hugely important. And right now, it's considered a deep red state. Okay? We are the bottom in voter registration and the bottom in voter turnout. Ranked somewhere in the last 3 or 4 states in the United States.
And why is that?
I wish I knew. Tennessee makes it hard. They throw up barriers for us to even register to vote here. And they do some things that are good. If you're in Tennessee, you can go to GoVoteTN and .com, and you can register online. In states like Texas, you have to fill out a paper form and personally turn it in. Okay, so all the states have different rules about how to get registered to vote. It's one of the most important things that you can do in your life. If you want to change your personal circumstances, go register to vote and vote in November. If you're not in love with the candidate, you're not going to marry them. They're not coming to your house for dinner. I like to think of it as if you want to go someplace in town and you are going to catch a bus, but there's not a bus that goes directly to your destination, then you get on the one that goes as close as you want to go. You don't just not go. You don't walk the whole way.
That's right.
You get on the bus that's closest, and then when you get off the bus, you walk the rest of the way. Well, that walking the rest of the way is the work that you do to try to move people towards your vision.
I totally agree with you.
But go with the person who's going to take you the majority of the way. So don't stay home in November. Vote, 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 vote.
You heard that from Lori. Vote, 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 vote. Okay, so you guys, we definitely love finding new ways to connect with our audience. We sent a few clips to Lori to view. Now, Lori, you saw Wolf Blitzer at the Soul Train Awards doing the Dougie.
Yes.
And you also saw Hillary dancing in South Africa, and I'm sure you will agree, in comparison to that video clip of Michelle Obama on the Ellen Show, Hillary could use a little more practice. Now, here's the question, Lori. When you're at an event or a party, what are some go-to songs that will make you hit the dance floor?
Well, I'm afraid I'm a little closer to Hillary and Wolf in my dancing skills. My husband and I have been married for 30 years, and we need to keep the romance alive.
Okay.
So when Barry White or Marvin Gaye comes on, that's when we're hitting the floor for some slow dancing.
Okay, I see you.
Yeah.
And there you have it. So if you see someone that looks like Lori at a party and you hear these songs, it's probably her getting down on the dance floor. Let us know if you agree with her top 3 issues by going to AFMFM.org, where you can also provide your top 3 critical issues millennials are facing. If you are a candidate or an organization and you need more value added to your voice, then make sure you reach out to DemCast at DemCastUSA.com. Thank you, Lori, for stopping by, and thank you all for joining us on A Few Minutes for Millennials, and God bless.